My name is Robin Lopez, but everyone at work just calls me Robin. I'm 22, and on my first day at Towage Logistics, the basement smelled like toner, cardboard, and coffee that tasted like a broken promise. My uniform hung off me like an apology. The plastic ID photo looked like I'd been rescued from a fluorescent lit cave. Still, the badge chimed green when I swiped, and something in my chest answered back, I'm in. At home, in didn't count. Not if in was the mailroom. Dad dragged out his congratulations like he was choking on the syllables. Well, it's a start. Mom stared past my shoulder, smiling with that soft pity mothers save for kids who bring home stray cats and call them victories. At least it's a job, sweetheart. That's more than some people have. And Derek, my older brother, courtroom polished, cufflinks that reflected entire ceilings, didn't even look up from his phone when he asked, "Do you have to wear a name tag?" He made it sound like I'd joined a hobbyist militia. I laughed because the other option was snapping, and Derek collects tears like trophies. The mailroom was 2 doors past a supply closet stocked aggressively enough to choke a moose. No windows. 2 other people down there. One who watched silent TikToks, and one who spoke about himself in third person like he was managing a brand. We were the subterranean circulation system. Ink, labels, Amazon boxes. People remembered our cart before our names. Invisibility can be a prison. It can also be a lab. I rolled through floors and listened. Who barked and who thanked the janitors? Which departments sabotaged each other with politeness? Who padded expense reports and who ate lunch alone? Every evening, I went home and wrote it all down. Names, titles, fragments, patterns. Not because I had a plan, but because the map was there, and maps asked to be drawn. Don't get stuck, Derek said over Thanksgiving turkey, the way people warn you about quicksand they've never seen. Mailroom jobs are a trap. I wasn't stuck, I was camouflaged. Noah, my boyfriend, would call me during my blocks of quiet and ask how the day was. He works nights sometimes. EMT training has him bouncing between schedules and adrenaline peaks. He has a habit of listening, like what I say could save a life. I'd tell him about the elevators that smell like old cologne, the senior VP who hands his coffee cup to anyone holding a clipboard, the way people drop secrets around the background noise. You're building something, Noah would say. Or hoarding scraps, I'd joke. Then he'd lower his voice like we were passing through an intersection with no lights. Scraps become bridges. On a Tuesday, I delivered envelopes to floor 6, the ops wing. 2 managers were complaining about delays. 3 days to Charlotte again, tracking data all wrong. I placed their mail on the desk, and before I could stop myself said, "Might be a sync issue between vendor timestamps and our logs." They stared like the coat rack had spoken. I shrugged. Just hear the same thing a lot. Then I pushed the cart away. 2 days later, a man with a clipboard and a real smile came to the basement. "You're Robin?" he asked. "Who told you about the sync issue?" "No one," I said. "I just noticed the pattern." He left without promising anything. That was fine. Promises are loud. Movement is quiet. A week later, my supervisor sat me in a room with a window. By mailroom standards, it was a terrace in Santorini. "We have a 6-week rotation assisting logistics," she said. "Schedule cleanup. File transfers." My badge started opening 2 more doors. The chair didn't squeak. I didn't tell my family. I couldn't stand the taxonomy. Is it real logistics or like assistant to logistics? Still hourly? Do you wear a different name tag? I stayed late. I asked questions that made people check their numbers twice. I built a spreadsheet so clean it looked like a prayer. I memorized the hum of the servers and the rhythm of the loading docks. And one night I realized I didn't want a better job. I wanted the system. I wanted to fix what everyone tolerated. At Sunday dinner, Mom asked, "You're still in that mail thing, right?" She said it like I was on a diet that would eventually fail. Dad nodded at Derek to begin the family TED Talk. "So," Derek announced, "our firm is spearheading a major corporate restructuring initiative this quarter. Brutal, but necessary." "Sounds like cutting people," I said. "Sounds like saving companies," he corrected. "You'll understand when you've been in the game long enough." I pictured the basement. Then I pictured the conference room where I'd presented a small suggestion, route balancing on Tuesdays to avoid the Phoenix bottleneck, and watched someone pencil it into a workflow like it was their idea. I didn't correct them. Camouflage is a choice. Later, Noah and I split cheap takeout on my floor. He asked about my day and then, careful, about Mia. He never says her name like a threat, only like a fact that still has teeth. They dated in college. She now works in PR for a consulting firm that loves disruption and quartz countertops. We don't talk about her unless she crosses into our lane. She's been posting from client sites, Noah said. I thought I recognized your building lobby in one. Coincidence, I said, too quickly. He watched me with those steady eyes. If it's not, you'll tell me. I will, I said, because I meant it. The first time I realized invisibility was ending, it was quiet. An internal Friday Digest singled out a junior contributor whose data caught an inefficiency that saved 6 figures annually. My team forwarded it around with emojis. My name wasn't printed, but the people who mattered knew. I kept the email like a pressed leaf. Then an invite landed in my inbox. Logistics restructuring, initial prep. The attendees list read like a family tree I'd burned. Directors, legal, external consultancy, TBD. The agenda was a brick. I scrolled to the bottom, and my stomach did that elevator drop because the TBD wasn't TBD anymore. It said, Lead Derek Mitchell, Senior Partner. I stared at the screen so long the cursor faded. I could hear Derek's voice, precision sharpened, talking about dead weight, optics, quick wins. I could hear Mom, too. Maybe your brother could put in a good word. As if I needed his words in my mouth to matter. My phone buzzed. A text from Noah. You breathing? Barely, I typed back. He's coming. To my building. Then he gets to see where you actually are, Noah wrote, which is not in a basement. I didn't answer right away, because part of me, maybe the part that still wore the sagging uniform, wanted to duck, to let the cart pass me by. To let Derek sail through and not even recognize me. But another part, the one that had quietly taught herself the system until it started answering to her touch, sat up straighter. That part wanted the glass doors to open and stay open. The prep meeting was a study in performance. Mid-level managers practice sentences with no verbs. We're very aligned on the evolving priorities. When someone joked, "Watch, this consultant will treat us all like interns," I smiled and said nothing. People always confess around the quiet one. Downstairs, I took one last slow lap of the basement, ran my fingers along the old cart's handle. Not nostalgia, orientation. You don't forget the exact temperature of the room you grew in. That night, my mother called and asked about my weekend. I told her I'd be working. On the sorting? Yeah, she asked. Kind of, I said, and for once I enjoyed the blur. After we hung up, I opened my notebook and turned to a fresh page. I wrote at the top, "When the consultant is your brother." Then I added the sentence that calmed me more than breathing exercises and victory playlists ever had. Let the work speak. Let the paper speak. The next morning, I arrived early. The lobby's marble floor reflected the ceiling like a promise. The elevators whispered up. I watched the security desk, the revolving doors, the long, polished line of the day's beginning. At 8:17, the doors parted and Derek walked in. Tailored charcoal suit, watch that wanted to be seen, stride like an apology he would never make. He didn't look at me, not yet. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for a floor he didn't know I owned. When the doors slid shut, I caught my reflection. The same face from that awful ID photo, only steadier. Game on, I told the chrome. And for the first time since the basement, I didn't feel invisible at all. When Derek walked into Towage Logistics that Thursday morning, he didn't just enter a building. He entered my world. He didn't know it yet, but the hierarchy had shifted. He breezed through the lobby, talking into his Bluetooth earpiece like he was delivering a keynote. The receptionist asked for ID. He flashed that $1,000,000 grin and a card embossed with his name, Derek Mitchell, Senior Partner, Strategic Restructuring Group. My brother loved long titles. They made up for shorter patience. I watched from a distance as he shook hands with our department lead, confident, charming, surgical. The same Derek who once told me I'd peaked at sorting mail. Now he was here to cut my team. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Quiet was my native language. By 10 a.m., word had spread. A consultant was evaluating the North Division. People started polishing their reports, straightening their posture in hallways, laughing too loud at unfunny things. Fear smells like air freshener in corporate buildings. When Derek's team arrived upstairs, I recognized one of them immediately. Mia Grant, Noah's ex, PR liaison, according to her badge. She looked the same as her social media photos: sleek hair, pearl earrings, the kind of confidence that announces itself before she even speaks. She saw me by the conference room door and gave a little smirk, like she was remembering a private joke. "Robin," she said sweetly, voice dipped in honey and history. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Didn't expect to see you anywhere near logistics," I said. "Oh, I'm just supporting Derek's audit, communication strategy." She lowered her voice slightly. "He told me about you." I raised an eyebrow. "All good things, I hope?" Her smile was razor thin. "Depends who's asking." Then she walked away, perfume lingering like warning smoke. Derek didn't recognize me at first. Maybe he didn't want to. Maybe the brain protects its ego from updates it can't afford. We crossed paths in the hallway an hour later. He did a double take. "Robin?" I looked up from the reports I was carrying. "Hey, you still work here?" "I do." "Huh, I thought you were in mail, right?" "Used to be." He squinted at my ID badge, and when he read the words Logistics Operations Analyst, North Division, his jaw tightened. "You're in logistics now?" "Head of it," I said. He froze, half disbelief, half calculation. Then the charm flicked back on like a motion sensor. "Good for you, climbing the ladder." "I didn't climb," I said. "I built a few rungs myself." He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Still the same Robin, huh? Sharp tongue." "Still the same Derek," I replied. "Expensive watch, busy conscience." That earned a glare. Then he turned and walked away. The next few days were delicious. Derek strutted around with a clipboard and jargon. Synergy, alignment, operational throughput. Unaware that half his slides came from reports I'd authored. He suggested merging departments I'd just gotten approval to expand. He talked about optimizing headcount, a sanitized way of saying fire people. And when he presented in meetings, I asked questions. Simple, pointed, factual. "Can you clarify the cost-benefit calculation on that proposal? Which regional data set did you reference?" He'd pause, fumble, flip through his notes. "We, have that in the appendix." I'd smile politely. "Page number?" The managers began to notice. By the third meeting, Derek avoided eye contact altogether. Mia noticed too. At one point, she leaned over during a coffee break and whispered, "You know, challenging him in front of clients might make you look defensive." I turned to her. "Or prepared." She blinked, thrown off. "You're really not afraid of him, are you?" I looked her dead in the eye. "Not anymore." That Friday afternoon, a memo slipped into my inbox. Subject: Preliminary Redundancy List. Confidential. My stomach dropped when I opened it. There it was, a neat, brutal list of names Derek's firm had flagged for potential layoffs. Second name from the top, Luis Vega. Luis, my intern, the kid who reminded me of me. Sharp, curious, still clinging to the hope that good work gets noticed. He'd cut error rates in half since joining. He stayed late, brought donuts for the early shift, and coded a new intake form that saved everyone 2 hours a week. And Derek was labeling him non-essential. I reread the line 3 times before I exhaled. My pulse steadied, and the noise of the office faded until there was only one thought left. No one cuts my people. Not him, not anyone. I printed the list, highlighted Luis's name, and walked it straight to HR. "Hey, Jenna," I said calmly. "Can we pull performance reviews for everyone on this list? I think there's an oversight." She blinked. "This came from the external audit. You're sure you want to challenge it?" "Positive." "All right," she said. "What are you looking for, exactly?" "The truth." That night, I stayed in the office alone. Lights off, city humming outside the glass. My reflection hovered over the spreadsheets, my own ghost supervising the evidence. Metrics don't lie, people do. Luis had outperformed every junior in the division. Meanwhile, 2 of Derek's keepers had missed deadlines for months. One even blamed a coffee machine malfunction. I compiled it all into a color-coded report. Clean, undeniable, surgical. At the top, I added a note. Observation. Conflict of interest. External consultant Derek Mitchell is immediate family to current department head. Not previously disclosed. I didn't sign my name. I didn't need to. The data spoke for me. When I hit send, I felt a strange calm. Not adrenaline, not fear. Just gravity doing what it always does when something falls into place. At home, Noah was waiting with dinner. I told him what I did. "You called him out?" he asked quietly. "I called out a conflict," I said, "not him." He nodded slowly, but his jaw clenched. "Mia's in PR. She'll try to spin it." "She can spin it into a hurricane," I said, "but the paper won't move." He smiled a little. "That's my girl." We ate in silence for a while, the kind of silence that feels earned, Then, just before I went to bed, my phone buzzed. An email from the director. Subject, meeting tomorrow morning. HR and legal present. No details, no agenda, just that line. I stared at it for a long time, my reflection flickering in the screen. Whatever tomorrow was, it wasn't just about the mailroom anymore. It was about who got to decide what people like me were worth. And I was done letting Derek write that story. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Luis's name highlighted in yellow and Derek's smirk hovering above it. The same smirk he wore when I was 16, and he told me I'd never survive real work. Morning came slow and gray. By the time I reached the building, the sky looked like it hadn't decided on rain or mercy. The HR conference room was already half full. Legal sat across from our director, their laptops open like shields. The air smelled faintly of printer ink and tension. "Robin," the director said, motioning to the chair beside him. "Glad you could make it." I nodded, calm on the outside, chaos on the inside. Across the table sat Derek, suit perfect, hair immovable, confidence cracked just enough to show the stress. Mia hovered near the back, pretending to check her phone, but very obviously listening. HR began. "We've reviewed your documentation regarding the proposed redundancies. Some discrepancies stood out." "Discrepancies?" Derek asked, all polite offense. "We followed standard methodology." "Then perhaps your methodology needs a tune-up," I said. His head snapped toward me. "Excuse me?" I slid the folder across the table. Color-coded, cross-referenced, receipts for every claim. "Performance metrics contradict several of your recommendations," I said evenly. "Luis Vega, for example, highest process improvement rate in the region, yet flagged as non-essential. Meanwhile, 2 senior staff with chronic deadline failures were marked as indispensable." Derek's jaw clenched. "Those evaluations are holistic. We account for," I cut in, "favoritism, optics, whatever makes the report look tidy." The room went quiet. Even Mia's phone lowered an inch. The HR representative cleared her throat. Additionally, Robin raised an ethical note. "Derek, are you related to any current employees within the department you're auditing?" Derek hesitated. Too long. "Yes," he said finally. "She's my sister." Legal's eyebrows went up in unison. "That relationship wasn't disclosed," HR said. "That's a serious breach of transparency." Derek tried to recover, smoothing his tie. "I didn't think it was relevant. She's not involved in senior—" "Head of logistics operations," the director interrupted. "She oversees half the data your audit references." Silence. Even the hum of the air vent seemed to pause. Mia glanced between us, realizing too late that she'd chosen the wrong side of history. "I wasn't hiding anything," Derek said, his voice rising. "I just didn't expect I'd be sitting across from you," I said quietly. "I know." The HR manager closed the folder with a decisive click. "Given the conflict of interest and the discrepancies, we're halting the external audit until legal completes a review." Derek's color drained. "You're freezing my contract? Over this?" HR didn't even blink. Effective immediately. I didn't look at him. I didn't have to. The sound of his pen clattering onto the table was enough. When the meeting ended, I stayed behind to gather my notes. Mia lingered near the doorway. "You didn't have to go that hard," she said softly. I glanced up. "I didn't go hard. I went factual." "You know this could ruin his reputation." I straightened the papers. "Then maybe it's time his reputation met reality." Her eyes narrowed. "Noah always said you had a mean streak." That one landed like a slap, but I didn't let it show. I looked at her and smiled. "He also said I had follow-through." She flinched just enough to make it worth it. Later that afternoon, my director called me into his office. He was a man allergic to small talk. When he said good morning, it sounded like a legal obligation. He slid my report across the desk. Clean, professional, sharp. Then he tapped the highlighted line at the bottom. "You're sure about the conflict disclosure?" "Yes," I said. He nodded once. "We'll proceed accordingly." I exhaled slowly. "Robin," he added, "for what it's worth, this division runs better because of you. Don't doubt that." It caught me off guard. Genuine words, not corporate filler. "Thank you," I managed. He gave a rare, almost invisible smile. "Keep doing what you do. Quiet power suits you." That evening, Noah picked me up after work. He took one look at my face and said, "So it's done?" "Mostly. Legal's reviewing. HR's freezing Derek's recommendations." He whistled. "Wow, that's huge." "I didn't do it to humiliate him," I said. "I did it because Luis deserves to stay." Noah nodded, then hesitated. "You should know. Mia's been spreading things." "Of course she has." "She's implying you went after Derek out of revenge." that it's personal. I laughed softly. Let her. Numbers don't gossip. Noah looked at me with quiet pride. Remind me never to underestimate you. You can underestimate me, I said, smiling faintly. Just not twice. Monday morning, Derek showed up anyway. He wasn't supposed to. His access should have been frozen. But he walked into the building like authority could override protocol. He found me in the break room, pouring coffee. You enjoying this? He asked. Enjoying what? Outranking me. I met his eyes over the rim of my cup. Do I? He scoffed. Still holding a grudge, huh? No, I said, setting the mug down. I'm just not correcting the record anymore. He stepped closer. You think you won? This isn't over. I don't need it to be, I said quietly. It's just done. He left without another word. The door swung shut behind him, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. By midweek, the official notice came down. Contract with Mitchell Consulting. Paused pending review. I expected satisfaction. What I felt instead was stillness, the kind that comes after a storm, when debris stops moving but the air hasn't cleared yet. Luis stopped by my desk, nervous. I heard about the audit. Are we safe? I smiled. You're not just safe, Luis. You're staying. He blinked. Wait, seriously? You earned it. He tried not to tear up. You're the best boss ever. I laughed softly. Don't say that too loud. HR might hear and start charging me for sentiment. He left, grinning, and I sat back in my chair. The report was done. The freeze was in motion. Derek's empire had a crack, and I didn't even have to raise my voice. But I knew the war wasn't over, not with my family. Derek would regroup, reframe, retaliate, and when he did, I needed to be ready. Because the next move wouldn't come from his firm. It would come from home. When HR summoned me again that Friday, I thought maybe Derek had tried to appeal. But when I stepped into the conference room, my director was smiling, and that was new. He motioned for me to sit. The HR rep slid a folder across the table. Robin, we've been reviewing your last 6 months of work. The efficiency improvements, cost reductions, your leadership of the logistics team. Frankly, you've been doing half this job already. My heart picked up speed. She continued, we'd like to make it official, effective immediately. You're being promoted to head of logistics operations, North Division. I blinked. Wait, head of? Team of 15, budget authority, relocation support if needed, she said. Salary increase included. The director leaned forward. You've earned it, Robin. You didn't ask for power. You built it. For a second, all I could do was stare at the folder. My name, Robin Lopez, printed neatly on the cover. I thought about that first day in the basement, the smell of toner and cardboard, the broken chair, and Derek's voice saying, don't get stuck. I smiled faintly. I guess I didn't. When I signed the contract, the pen trembled just a little, not from fear, but from the weight of everything behind it. Then HR cleared her throat. One more thing. You'll need to finalize some of the terminations from the restructuring list, now under your authority. I frowned. You mean Derek's list? She nodded. His proposals are invalid, but some of his firm's contracts are being closed. You'll have final sign-off. She turned the file around for me to see. Right at the top, Derek Mitchell, external consultant. It took everything in me not to smile. I read the page carefully, line by line, verifying every number, every clause, every justification. Then I signed my name with a small, deliberate tap of the pen. Some things deserve punctuation. I didn't tell anyone that day. Not Noah, not my parents. Instead, I walked through the building like I was seeing it for the first time. Every floor, every desk, every nameplate. I'd been invisible here once. Now I was the one people nodded to when they passed. When I got back to my office, I took my old mailroom badge, the one with the awful ID photo, and hung it on the wall beside the new title plaque, a reminder of where silence had taken me. That night, I met Noah for dinner. He noticed the new lanyard immediately. You did it, he said softly. I shrugged. Kind of. He leaned forward. Not kind of. You did. For a moment, I wanted to cry. Not out of sadness, but relief. The kind you only feel when you finally stop explaining yourself. Then he hesitated. Mia called me. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. What? She said she was worried about you. Claimed you're becoming vindictive. That you tanked Derek's contract for personal reasons. I exhaled slowly. Let her talk. PR is her job, remember? She also said you've changed. Good, I said flatly. That was the point. He reached across this table, taking my hand. You don't owe her, or anyone, your old self. I smiled faintly. You're good at this. He smirked. I am dating a logistics strategist. I've learned to manage crises. The following week, my mother called. I let it ring twice before answering. Robin, honey, are you busy? Always. Well, she said, stretching the word, your brother's been having a tough time. He hasn't been himself lately. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Let me guess. Contract issues? She hesitated. Something like that. He mentioned problems with a client. You two should talk. Clear the air. Mom, I said gently, Derek and I work in different worlds now. There's nothing to clear. We're still a family, she insisted. I know. That's why I'm not saying more than that. Silence, then softly, you've changed. I smiled to myself. Good night, Mom. At work, the wind shifted. People started treating me differently, not with flattery, but with respect. Questions that once skipped me now landed directly in my inbox. My opinions made meetings shorter. My team moved smoother. Luis dropped by one morning holding a box of donuts with "Boss" written in frosting. Please don't fire me for the carbs, he joked. Not unless you eat the evidence, I said. He grinned. Feels different around here now, like people finally see who's running things. They'll see more soon, I said, because the company's end-of-quarter leadership event was coming. A massive conference downtown with press coverage, investors, and all our corporate partners. And one of the invited firms? Mitchell Consulting. Derek's firm. Except this time they weren't headlining. They were attending, as guests. The event hall gleamed like a cathedral of glass and steel. I almost didn't go. Public events aren't my thing. Too many cameras, too much perfume, too much pretending. But then I saw the guest list. Derek's name, Mia's too. So I went. I arrived early, black suit, hair pinned up, name badge that read Robin Lopez, head of logistics operations, North Division. I didn't scan the crowd right away. I wanted the moment to find me, and it did. Across the room, Derek stood near the espresso bar, mid-conversation with a client I'd worked with last quarter. His expression froze when he saw me. Then confusion, then recognition. He looked from my badge to my face and back again. His lips parted like he was trying to swallow his own surprise. I crossed the room, unhurried. Evening, I said. Didn't expect to see you here, he managed. I work here, I said simply. You're the guest this time, remember? We stood in silence, tension humming under the jazz music. It's good you came, I added lightly. These events are great for networking, especially if you're between firms. He blinked, caught off guard. You... Enjoy the coffee, I said, and walked away. 2 days later, Dad called. Your mother saw the event photos, he said. You looked important. I am, I replied. He cleared his throat. We just didn't know, Robin. You never told us. I did, I said. You just didn't hear me. He sighed. We're proud of you, really. But your brother's... Dad, I interrupted gently. Please don't make me your solution to Derek's consequences. He went quiet, then quietly. You've grown strong. Finally, I said. It only took a lifetime of being underestimated. That night, I stayed late at the office. The city glittered below like a nervous heartbeat. HR had sent over final paperwork for vendor restructuring. As I flipped through the files, I found one scanned document. Derek's termination form, stamped, archived, sealed. My own signature at the bottom. I printed a copy, framed it, and hung it above my desk, right beside the old mailroom badge. The beginning and the end. Proof that silence, when focused, can be louder than any revenge speech. The first Sunday I skipped family dinner, my phone lit up nonstop. Missed calls, group texts, Mom's messages multiplying like weeds. I didn't answer. It wasn't anger anymore. It was exhaustion. I was tired of performing gratitude for people who only clapped when they could take credit for my tune. 3 weeks passed before I saw them again. It happened at a grocery store of all places, the universe's favorite stage for accidental confrontations. I was halfway through the self-checkout line, one hand on my cart, scanning salad mix, when I heard it. Robin. I turned. Mom stood there holding a bag of frozen peas like she needed them for courage. Beside her was Derek, unshaven, eyes red, wearing a polo that looked slept in. I straightened. Hi. She smiled too quickly. We haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, been busy. Derek didn't say a word. He just looked smaller. The air around him was missing its usual sharpness. Mom tried again. Your father's been asking about you. Did he lose my number? I asked. Her mouth twitched. We were hoping to talk. Maybe over dinner? Why now? She hesitated. Because we're family, and, well, your name came up. Someone at church mentioned they saw your promotion on LinkedIn. There it was, the unspoken truth. They hadn't come for reconciliation. They'd come for recognition. I tilted my head. So this is a PR follow-up. Robin! I cut her off, gentle but firm. I'm not angry, Mom. Really. I just don't owe you an explanation. Her smile faltered. We're still your family. I nodded. And I'm still the girl in the mailroom, right? That stopped her cold. I used to think that was the worst thing you could call me, I said quietly. Now I realize it's the best. Because that version of me, she worked, she learned, she survived all your silence. And she built this version standing here. Finally, Derek spoke. You think you're better than us now? No, I said simply. I just think I finally stopped being smaller than you. He looked away, shame flickering across his face like a power outage. Mom's eyes glossed over, but she didn't chase me this time. No lecture, no guilt trip, just silence. And I walked away. Back at the office, the city looked different. Or maybe I did. The noise that once felt like pressure now sounded like possibility. The fluorescent lights that used to buzz like doubt now hummed in rhythm with my breathing. HR sent over one last set of vendor forms that week, finalizing Derek's firm's closure within our system. I scrolled through the digital folder until I found his name, Mitchell Consulting, terminated. I clicked archive. Then, just for myself, I whispered, done. 2 days later, an email from Mom popped up. Subject, congratulations. We're proud of you, sweetheart. Maybe we can all get together soon. It was 6 hours late. 6 years, really. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I forwarded the message to Noah with one line. Proof miracles exist. He wrote back, dinner's on me. No PR statements required. That weekend, I brought Noah to the office. He'd never seen it before. My office with the glass door, the view of the skyline, the calm hum of the city below. He pointed to the wall. You kept it? The badge? Yeah, he said, smiling. And the frame next to it? I followed his gaze. My old mailroom ID beside the signed termination form. Derek's. It's not about revenge, I said softly. It's about remembering the map. Every floor I climbed used to be a ceiling someone else built for me. Noah smiled. You broke all of them. I shook my head. No, I just stopped asking for permission to stand up straight. Later, when everyone else had gone home, I stayed behind. The office was quiet, all screens dim, just the city's reflection glowing in the glass. I thought about all the times I'd kept quiet. Dinners where my ideas got talked over, meetings where I'd smiled through dismissal, years where I'd been invisible in my own family. Invisibility isn't weakness, it's incubation. And when you finally emerge, people mistake the light for arrogance. It isn't, it's arrival. I walked to my desk and placed a small label under the frame, just a printed word on a strip of tape. Start. Because that's what it was. Not revenge, not even closure, just the beginning of a story I finally got to write myself. A week later, Luis knocked on my door, holding a clipboard. Hey boss, HR said you'll be sitting in on new intern interviews next week. Already? I smiled. Time flies. He grinned. Any advice for them? I thought for a moment. Then I said, yeah, pay attention. People underestimate the ones who listen more than they talk. He nodded, scribbling it down like gospel. As he left, I looked around at the office one more time. The badge, the frame, the sunlight catching the edge of my desk. For years, I'd been told my story was small, that I was small. Now, every corner of this place whispered the opposite. And somewhere out there, maybe Derek was still trying to explain how his little sister, the mailroom girl, became the name everyone copied on strategy memos. But he'd never understand. Because the moment he stopped looking, I started seeing. And once you learn to see, really see, you never go back to being invisible again.